This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. It's episode 482 of the Craft Beer Brewing Podcast. I'm Jamie Bogner, and I'm in Chicago, Illinois for today's episode. And joining me is Stephen Bossu of Hopewell. Welcome to the podcast, Stephen.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be on, chat a little bit about the kind of beers that Hopewell makes.
Heck yeah. I was here once before, years and years ago, maybe 2018 or 2017. That pre-pandemic time just feels like so long ago. But we did a Brewery Accelerator event here in Chicago, and you led a tour, and we had folks out here in the tap room, and it was so young then, and now you're celebrating a 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, so those were early days for us. So Hopewell, we've been open in Logan Square for we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Again, my name is Stephen. I'm one of the co-founders at Hopewell. It's been a wild ride. I agree. Like the kind of time warp through COVID and like our small business, like it's been truncated through the last decade of, a small new brewery going through a growth phase, and then COVID, and then like the world's been on its head ever since for, all the reasons we all know. So it has been not the smoothest ride at all times, but quite an adventure. And we're pretty proud of the kind of things that like we've ended up making now, and proud of the things we started making, but boy, I'm sure we look different back in 2017.
For sure. And through the pages of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine and through our Brewing Industry Guide, I know we've loved covering things like Lil Buddy, the small format pills that you make. And, of course, there's this other brewery that now makes small format pills, and it seems like, that one I think has scored a 96 with our blind judges. Great beer in a cool format and a really fun little thing, to drink. I'd love to talk about that through this. And very funny enough, I bought an old collection of historic like 70s and early 80s beer cans. And I even found small mini packaging of macro lager in that kind of collection, proving that, what's old is new again, that, some of these great ideas just are cyclical, and they come back over generations. They get forgotten and they get brought back. And
Yeah, Lil Buddy, it's such a fun one. And the beer's fantastic. The actual liquid in the can's fantastic. It's a funny one for our team too, because, at the end of the shift, at the end of the week, we're all drinking draft beer at our bar. Like we go to the bar and we're drinking draft beer, but Lil Buddy's the only beer we make that's not in draft. It's only in package. It's only in our little 8-ounce stubby cans. So I think as a team, we often don't taste it as much together, like in a group setting, just having fun drinking it together. And then like every once in a while, we'll just like remember like, yeah, this beer rips. This is so good. Like we should keep making this like we are.
I have to bring some cans out for those shifties on those Friday afternoons. Sure. And then things like Outside Voice. You guys make lots of, of beautiful smaller beers that are meant to be, enjoyed socially, and also make them incredibly well. You also has launched this brand called Choom, making THC beverages. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that if we have some time after we're talking about beer. But, it's beer first. We're definitely beer first here too. But we're going to, dive into that approach to making characterful beers here in Chicago. Before we do that,
hey there, Justin from G&D Chillers. For decades, we partnered with breweries to solve their everyday challenges, from efficiency upgrades to sustainable refrigerant solutions. If you're ready to future-proof your cold side, we're ready to help.
G&D now offers their Elite 290 Micro Series with 5H chillers, bringing even more flexibility to their propane-powered lineup. In fact, they're building one right now for Red Clover Ale Co. in partnership with Efficiency Vermont. It runs on a natural refrigerant with near zero global warming potential, projected to deliver around 10% more efficiency than A2L refrigerant systems. That's smart sustainability backed by proven engineering and trusted performance. With 24/7 support and remote monitoring, your cold side stays dialed in day or night. Explore the Elite 290 Micro Series and more at gdchillers.com/podcast. And Berkeley Yeast just launched Dry Tropics London, their best-selling liquid yeast strain, now with all the ease of use benefits of dry yeast. Dry Tropics London delivers the soft, pillowy mouthfeel and juicy character you'd expect from a top-tier London ale strain, but with a serious upgrade, a burst of thiols that unleash vibrant, layered notes of grapefruit and passion fruit. A lot of brewers love the clean passion fruit you get from Tropics, but they don't want every IPA to be a tropical fruit bomb. At the dry yeast price point, you can pitch and ditch without breaking the bank, or you can co-pitch with your house strain to adjust the intensity of the notes. And with nationwide free shipping, there's never been a better time to try Dry Tropics. Order now at berkeleyyeast.com and experience the ease and impact of Dry Tropics London yeast. Also, this episode is sponsored by PackTech, delivering craft beer multi-packing you can trust. PackTech's handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable, helping breweries close the loop and advance the circular economy. With a minimalist design, durable functionality you can rely on, and custom color matching, PackTech helps brands stand out while staying sustainable. Trusted by craft brewers nationwide, they offer a smarter, sustainable way to carry your beer. To learn more, visit packtech-opi.com. That's PAKTECH-OPI.com. All right, Steve, we normally start off with a little bit of background, a little bit of history. What's yours? What got you into beer, and trace that arc into brewing for you, and then how Hopewell came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a very common story of, finding craft beer, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, the big hitters that you come your way and you go, wait, this is different. This is something that's interesting. This is something I want to enjoy. This is something I want to, taste and make and understand, and the whole craft, right? So like, I feel like most people I talk to in this line of work have had those experiences. My approach, I was studying science in college, and so I decided to go after undergrad. I popped over to UC Davis, did their fermentation program there. So studied under Michael Lewis, Charlie Bamforth. It was intense. I didn't get to enjoy anything like fun over in California.
Sure.
Davis is like, it's a fun part of the country. It's so much around it, and agriculture, and
I'll be flying into Sacramento next week.
Yeah. And so like it was very familiar coming from University of Illinois, another ag campus. But that said, I studied a lot. I did really well. I scored the top score that year in the Institute of Brewing Distilling's exam. So they give it out once a year. Everyone takes it, and I got the top score, which felt great. Which got me a job scrubbing floors at, at a brewery, which was great. So I did a brief stint in wine. I was interested in wine enology, the whole thing. And it is an interesting world. It just wasn't really going to be for me. So I got in, really started focusing on beer. So I was living out in Portland, Oregon for a while with Craft Brew Alliance, working there. Loved my time there. Just really went to school of like how to make 12 turns a day of a beer, focusing in on big brands. Cause that was at the time, we had a couple different breweries around the country. This was the big one in Portland. So we had the bigger brands, and the smaller brands were kind of getting kicked out to the others. So we were focusing in on just like efficiently doing what we do best, is like large batches. And I really thrived in that environment, that kind of narrow creativity where you're really, not exercising a new thing every day. You're creating a better way to do the things you're already doing.
Incremental process improvements.
Yeah, that excellence, right?
That kind of Kaizen approach.
So from there, moved out to New York. I was with Brooklyn Brewery for a while. So got to brew under Garrett Oliver, great team there. And I actually moved away from the brew deck for a little bit, got into more operations, supply chain, demand planning, which is a really fun time there. At that time, it was a great team. It was a growing team, and I just met a lot of people in the industry and around the world too, because we were doing some joint ventures around the world. And, like cool projects that I wasn't necessarily going out to Sweden every week, but like I was chatting with them, and we were working on projects together. So and then from there, made my way back to Chicago. I'm from here. My two partners, my two co-founders, Samantha and Jonathan, are from here, and we just took the leap. We signed a lease. We got a bank loan. We bought a bunch of equipment, and we started making beer. It took a lot more thought and effort than all that. But at some point we said, hey, we really want to do this small business. We want to, this to be our life. So we left our careers and opened up Hopewell.
So what was the unique selling proposition when you opened Hopewell? There were already Chicago is a great beer town. There's lots of breweries. There were not as many then, but there was still a lot, and or at least what was perceived as a lot, even if now it's even significantly more.
Yeah.
So what was that unique selling proposition that you all developed for this?
Chicago is a great place to call home. I love it here. I loved living in New York, loved living in Portland too. So all sorts of great places to be, but I'm just so happy we're in Chicago. There's so much good food and beverage, the people, it's just like a good place to make a living and make a life. Hopewell, I'll say this, is we are in our 11th year now, and we are always continuing to figure out what is it that we're doing, right? And we're always trying to refine that. And I think that's like a lifelong goal, right? That's a practice, right? And I'm really comfortable living in that space. I'll say from the start, we understood a lot better what we weren't, what we didn't want to be. We knew we weren't the sword metal dragon brewery. There's a lot of those. They do it really well. It just wasn't us, right? So like, why would we try to do it? We weren't the super big IPA brewery. There's a lot of people doing great IPAs, triple IPAs. Like we just weren't going to chase that, right? We weren't going to be the traditional lager brewery. It's like, I'm not German. I don't know. It didn't speak to us. And
there's other places here where you can get that.
Absolutely.
We're
doing really well. So, what we needed to figure out is, hey, what do we want to do? And it's, what it really came down to is we wanted to make beers that invite people in. We want to bring people to the table, right? So, even 10 years ago, we were talking about, even more now, but 10 years ago, we were still talking about, hey, like, craft has a problem. We're not bringing people to the table. We're bringing a person to the table. Like, we all kind of know it looks a lot like me. I'm a white man with a beard and a ball cap.
Sure.
So like you can kind of picture that. But who else can enjoy craft beer? And the answer is literally anyone, right? And we're not the only ones doing this work. I would never pretend to do that. But that's what we set out to do. Is say, hey, if we're going to make beers, if we're going to make brands, we want these to speak to a broader audience than just the people that are already buying craft beer. And I think over the last 10 years, we've really gotten a lot better at that. It's taken some time figuring out what's working, what's not. And, that's true with all small business. Just in the last month, we just released our Korean lager, Pocha, which has just been a blast seeing the reception. We do a ton of lagers, Italian pills, Japanese style lager, North German. So releasing Korean lager. And sorry, I should preface, one of our co-founders, Samantha, she's Korean American. So this is just like kind of bringing the story a little bit closer to home. Where it's like, what? Yes, let's do this. We do all these other lagers. Like, why can't we do a Korean lager? So that one, just kind of on that note, has really been super fun for me to just see like a much broader community getting excited about craft beer that might not necessarily be thinking about craft beer. Sure.
I noticed, for the very first time I walked into this tap room, it didn't feel like other late 20-teens brewery tap rooms. It was not a industrial space. There's no Edison bulbs. There's not just raw bar stools. Like, it is a clean, contemporary, maybe slightly Scandinavian, light colors, white, blonde wood. It's very, very bright and very like open and welcoming. And, it's a different vibe, but it's a vibe that works in an urban environment like Chicago, where there are people on that wavelength who may not feel like other things speak to them in the way that this is a craft beer environment, but just an environment that they want to be in.
Oh, 100%. And it's been really gratifying over the last 10 years to see how our tap room has evolved from when we started through COVID till now. Like you said, we opened with the tap room. We were never going to just open in some warehouse somewhere. Or we want to be here in Logan Square in Chicago. This is our community. I live here. I love just seeing neighborhood people that I don't really know, but I know you because I see you come through all the time. That's the life that we want to make. That's the small business that we want to make. So seeing where we started, where we absolutely got a lot more people coming in. Hey, there's a new craft brewery. I want to come and drink craft beer. We certainly get that. That's what we do for a living. We brew craft beer. But now the tap room looks a lot more like, hey, this is a neighborhood bar, and we'll have some other ciders on, like some funky ciders. We'll have Illinois has some laws about what we can and can't carry, right? So we can't have anything under the sun, but we've got our whole line of THC beverages, and we make THC cocktails. We want to meet people where they're at, and sometimes you want to drink craft beer. Sometimes you don't want to drink, but you still want to go out with your friends, and we're here for that. So we hope that the space, the feeling, that brightness, that invitingness extends through not just the physical space, but to your actual experience and enjoyment. And, frankly, when I'm the recipe guy, like I'm the brewmaster. So when we're designing a beer, I want that beer, that liquid, to reflect that ethos as well.
And you've made some serious choices to keep production right here at the brewery in Logan Square. This kind of beer production at this kind of scale, because you also do package and distribute beer in addition to it, is very, very, very hard to do in an urban environment where everyone is packed in this close. And so you have to really, really want to be right here to do it.
Yeah, and you just walked through our space, and you've seen it over the years. It's we filled it up, and there's no more space.
Yeah, there was more space first time I was here.
No, the bulk of our business is distributing beer out to restaurants, bars, liquor stores, grocery stores. So, we definitely have our tap room. That's really meaningful for us. But in terms of the volume of beer that we do, it's by far a minority. So the most of what we're doing is making kegs, packaging, and then sending it out the door. We don't have a loading dock here. We're essentially in a retail space in a neighborhood, like on top of the Logan Square Blue Line, right? So. But the more and more we look around, it's like this is kind of an industrial use, right? Like the way we're leaning. So yes, we've made choices. None of it's perfect. All of it's compromise on the physical space and how we're designing and using the space. And none of it's the cheapest, easiest way to do it.
Not at all. There's definitely some commonalities with breweries like was that last year at KCBC in Brooklyn. And when you see breweries like this tucked in to neighborhoods in a major urban place like that, like you just understand that like how much it means to a brewer to make sure that you're doing it in that place, amidst that community.
Oh yeah.
Because what you give up is humongous.
And I'll say this is, I think our New York friends, some of the you just listed as well, they understand the space more than anyone. Like often we'll talk to people who are like, we're pretty tight on space and like they don't really get it, but the New York friends do. There's that commonality.
Yes, they do. There's no way around it. All right, well let's talk about your approach to brewing, and we're going to start with some lager. And since this Korean style lager is top of mind, maybe we'll talk about that. But before we do, Oregon hop country is heaven to world-class lager varieties, and Indie Hops is proud to have introduced Oregon's newest lager hop, Lorien, in 2022. Lorien is a growing list of beers that have found their way to the podium and, more importantly, into the hearts of lager lovers across the country. Discover Indie Hops Lorien. Side effects may include rampant festivity, sales bumps, and exceeded expectations. Indie Hops, life is short. Let's make it flavorful. And this podcast is sponsored by the Midea 5050 Flex, the industry's first dual compartment 3-way convertible freezer. The 5050 Flex is designed to flex with your life. It can convert to all fridge, all freezer, or half and half with just the touch of a button. Plus, with reversible doors and adjustable storage compartments, you can stay organized no matter your food storage needs. 5050 Flex is also designed to maintain a stable temperature even in non-climate controlled spaces, so it's perfect for your garage, man cave, or wherever you need a little more space. Maybe use all 20 cubic feet as a beer fridge. Check out midea.com/US for more information on how to take your beer storage to the next level. Also, the Beyond Beer space is booming, and Old Orchard is here for it, supplying breweries with fruit ingredients for all of your beverage needs: low, no alcohol, hard lemonades, seltzer, cider, and more. Old Orchard has supplied hundreds of industrial customers across 49 states, including nationally and internationally loved brands, so you'll be in good company. More information and free samples are waiting at oldorchard.com/brewer. That's oldorchard.com/brewer. So we should probably paint a picture for folks here. As you walk in, you look at the tap board, there is a lot of lager. Even though you are not a hardcore traditional lager brewer, you all can pour beautiful Czech style pale lager with a nice thick head of foam in a proper mug. I was drinking one just now. Actually, I'm just about finished with that one. And you also do a crispier kind of lager pour with a drier foam cap on it. And you produce obviously Little Buddy just in cans, meant in that little so you all make a significant amount of lager in a general sense of it, and it's all intended to be accessible but also inventive and creative. I loved when we got this press release around this Korean style lager, and that's obviously what I responded to. And I think, I'm going to go to Chicago pretty soon. We should talk about that, because the idea of not just making a beer that used ingredients from a place, but was inspired by the opportunity and occasion of drinking with street food and drinking as you go out with friends and, have a beer as you're walking and eating, ordering street food. Like, that's just a time and a place. And it's something that's relevant to an urban environment like Chicago. And I love this idea of it while making a beer that is artfully made, but is very, very clearly not supposed to be pretentious or in some way set people above as a quote unquote craft beer. So I thought it was a clever brand position. Talk about the kind of creative process behind that.
Yeah, so Pocha, our Korean lager, it's an all malt, 100% malt lager, and it's meant to be enjoyed cold with friends with food, like no exception. And when we look at the great lager beers of the world, you think of, obviously like the Germans and, all right. If you go back far enough, lagers were kind of everywhere, but the big jump in the story is that the Germans kind of perfected it and kind of took a monopoly on it. And then you look at, who actually, refined the yeast, isolated the yeast and all that. But as it is, it's basically a European monolith, but then went everywhere, right? And so we're not thinking of Mexican lager as like a German lager, right?
And I think there's the thing, like it went everywhere really fast,
right? Because it's awesome.
People miss this kind of history of it. When you look at those or that some of that kind of foundational, lager brewing, kind of innovation. It was what 1840s,
yeah.
And by the 1860s, they were already making lager beer in the United States. Like it was, you think craft beer in America took off fast. Like this is crazy, just how fast it took off when travel was quite a bit more difficult back then.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, it made incredible beer that was stable, that had a single isolated yeast in it. So you actually knew what you were going to ferment, that you can control it. It was shelf stable. So it had all the advantages, and it's tasty and delicious and looks pretty in a glass. So we love playing in the lager space. Like you mentioned, tank beer, our Czech style lager, like we do the Luker pour up front, like no exception. We're not going to pour it in any other way. But with Pocha, our Korean style lager, we really wanted to capture, the way Koreans drink beer is super fun. It's always with food, and they approach it with a little bit more character. So they're not going for super dry, super light. Like they, when they're describing the beers that they're drinking and the beers you see in the market there, it's bold, rich, strong, and all within context, right? It's still a lager beer, like a light lager beer in color. But if you look at the food in Korea too, the food is, and all right, I'm going to actually rewind here. I am not Korean. I'm white. I am by no means going to speak,
Sure.
for Koreans. But my wife is Korean. She's my business partner here. I'm very familiar, so, and I love seeing how different people drink around the world. So if you actually go to Korea, a lot of beer consumption is done in these pojang matcha, these street stalls, these street markets. And it's like super familiar, and they're not the only people with street markets. So these are all over the world.
Sure.
But when you're drinking beer, and it's not just drinking alone with friends drinking beer, they won't even serve you alcohol without food. And if you order a beer, they're bringing food out whether you ordered it or not. And I love that. I want that to be part of how we enjoy drinking, because it's just so much more enjoyable with some food. And the food there is, unabashedly strong, pungent, garlicky, and I've never met a group of people more obsessed with food than the Koreans. And you can at me in the comments. I'm sure everyone loves food. I know, but it is just to the next level of like, try it this way, try eating it this way. Now try eating it this way. And then like you do that all night long and then you go, oh my God, I can't eat anything more. So we wanted to make beer that's meant to be with food, with friends and enjoyed in groups. So we actually did an event last night that I think was so much fun for our group, for their group. We went over to Parachute. Chef Beverly Kim over there, chef owner. It's just such a fun restaurant. It's just up the street in Avondale. And they brought on Pocha, our Korean lager, and they were doing somek, so soju and mekju, which is beer. So combos of that. And they were doing tteokbokki with fish cakes in there. And like you couldn't get it any other way. It's like if you ordered it, you're getting it with the tteokbokki, and it's spicy and it's hot, and they had a cold bug, and it was just so enjoyable. And the beer has a little body behind it too. Right? It's 100% malt, so it's not a lean beer. Like it's got a touch of color because it's all malt, right? It doesn't have adjunct in there. It's noble hop, so it's got a little bit of a spritz to it, a little bit of hop character in there. But at the end of the day, it's still cold, enjoyable lager. So we're not reinventing the wheel here, but we are looking for those occasions that people want to drink, and we're trying to make beers for those times.
The other thing I was struck by, and we'll talk about how you've actually gone about designing this beer, but it even in the packaging itself, it felt like there's this concept of looking like you're not trying too hard. And and so there should be some effortlessness to it, and that struck me when looking at how you present this beer. It's intended to be a well-made beer, but it's not trying to prove to you that it's a very fancy, well-made beer. It is trying to downplay itself in that process.
Yeah, we try to keep the seriousness. I mean, like I've been accused of being a serious person. I'm methodical in my approach to my craft. I think about how we're designing beers, making beers, but that's not how people are enjoying beers. Like I want people to enjoy beers because they're with friends enjoying a beer, and if they want to think about, hey, what's the hop in here? What's the malt character? What flavors are we getting? Yeah, dude, let's do it.
Sure.
That is such a rare occasion that someone's actually doing that. More often you're going, yeah, this tastes great. This is fun. And then you're talking about whatever you're doing. Right. So that's where we're trying to meet people. We have plenty of beers where if you want to like talk about Simcoe hops, dude, I'll talk about Simcoe hops. But with, especially with our lager beers, we're trying to find that time. Hey, like, are you at a Korean restaurant eating Korean food? Like, yes, this is a locally made Korean style lager. There's lots of great options that are imported too. You should enjoy those too. But like, now we can say, hey, like we met that brief. We're at the table too, and we think it is equally appropriate. And if you want to shop local and small, like we're here. So it's just a really fun way for us to try different expressions. I mean, you look at all the cool people doing Czech style lager, and we have our own Czech style lager tank beer. It's such a fun beer to make. I love Sots hops. Like I always will. But I think more people should be exploring these other styles because they have just as rich of a history. Czech style went everywhere, right? But same with, German style.
Ostensibly went everywhere. I would argue that, what was sold for many years as Czech style lager in the U.S. is not exactly Czech style lager, but
fair enough. I think looking at Korea too, for a Korean style lager, it's got an amazing history of exchange of ideas, and this is just over millennia. Korea is a peninsula connected to the mainland and then China, and so all ideas in that whole region coming from Europe all the way through China, down through the peninsula over to Japan and back, all every single year, all day long. So you have such a rich exchange of ideas there. And I think lager is exactly the same. And you have two big buckets of kind of lagers there, like most places in the world, right? You have kind of macro, dry, adjunct lager. That's great. The bulk of what you see being sold in like Pojangmacha and Pochas, the street stalls, is all malt lager beer. And I can name drop a bunch of fun brands. They're big brands and they're super fun. They all have different characteristics, but that's what we wanted to go after is that beer meant for drinking, not, because we have plenty of adjunct macro lagers here too, and those have their places too.
Well, let's talk about what that actually means when you get into designing the beer itself, how you choose that malt, how you figure out where that color is, what you do to, how you, obviously if it's going to be eaten with some spicy food, then it needs to be dry, but it can also have a little bit of body to it too. You also mentioned like being super, super dry, very, very highly attenuated is not necessarily the goal, but as all of these things that even if they have body, like your Czech lager, it still has to finish dry in order for people to want to keep drinking it. Let's talk about that kind of construction. Let's be those people that do want to pick it apart. Before we do that, the pain all too well. You're guessing at market trends, left in the dark about how your liquids are performing on the shelves. You can't tell if your distributors are actually executing the objectives you gave them. You're losing out on critical revenue opportunities, and that's because access to data was controlled by a single antiquated solution, limiting who could benefit from it, creating little room for innovation in the industry. But now there's a faster, more real-time and value-packed way to get the full picture instantly and strengthen those distributor partnerships. It's time to regain control of your data, sales, and operations. Introducing Orbit by Encompass. Orbit Data and CRM connects your production performance directly to the wider beverage market. Orbit Data provides real-time visibility into retailer data, sales, and inventory so that you can make faster and clear decisions. It's also a CRM for your supplier sales team that brings total transparency to your distributor relationships, keeping them accountable to what they need to sell and how. Orbit empowers producers to drive decisions with accurate data, discover new profit streams, and pivot faster than ever before. Go to encompasstech.com/launch-orbit for more details. That's encompasstech.com/launch-orbit. And running a brewery means juggling a lot, managing production, serving guests, selling online, and keeping everything moving behind the scenes. That's where Arrived comes in. What started as a point-of-sale system has grown into the technology your brewery runs on, built specifically for the teams behind great beer. Unlike generic systems, Arrived brings together taproom service, online sales, brewery management, payments, reporting, and growth tools into one complete platform. So instead of bouncing between systems, you can brew, serve, and sell all in one place. Visit Arrived, ARRYVED.com to learn more. Also, pumps are critical to any advanced home brewing setup, from mash recirculation to wort transfer, and even for cleaning. A quality pump is a key part of every brew day. The SS Brew Pump from SS Brewtech is engineered to tackle even the messiest brew days. Featuring an IP55 water resistance rating, an easy-to-use DIN head with 360-degree rotation, and a flow rate of up to 11 gallons per minute, it has the power to keep your brew day moving. Visit ssbrewtech.com/pump to learn more about how the SS Brew Pump can upgrade your home brewery. So, you have your mental idea, you have your examples of some of the Korean lager that's popular in the food stalls. And obviously, as with everything, there's a range. There's always a range. How did you choose where you wanted to be? And then how did you go about building making the ingredient selection and then thinking about process in order to actually make this lager?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'll preface this is that everything we do here tends to be pretty collaborative. At the end of the day, it filters through me as a brewmaster to get written on paper. But, it's a really rare occasion that I'm just writing down my ideas and we make it, right? We have a smart team that are doing what they do, and that's why they're here, is to work together on these ideas. So the first step is get together and taste some beers, and actually just then take some measurements off those beers we bought too.
Sure.
Just start learning the analytical side. But hey, what do we like about this? Hey, there's a little bit of color. This is not the palest beer in the world. It's got a little bit of body, a little sweetness. Like, you're not missing the malt in it. So that's absolutely how we designed it, is that we're going to have a little bit of body. The AE, the attenuation, is going to be slightly higher at the end of the day, at the end of the fermentation, to leave a little bit, of sweetness of mouth that you actually can taste the beer. And
do you know what the finishing gravity is?
Yeah, let me look it up. We're at 2.5. So, on a light lager, kind of middle of the road. You see some higher, you see some lower. You definitely go a lot lower. But we're not shooting for that super dry. If we wanted to do a Japanese style rice lager, which we've done, which is super fun, we'll dry that out to tomorrow. But this, we're going to leave kind of a reasonable amount of body behind. My thesis on malt, and I know there's going to be disagreements, but I could never build a brand that we want to build around shipping malt from Europe to here. We just can't. And this is a beer that we want to keep around. We certainly use Fireman. We use all the good European malts. Those are great malts. I like using them. They taste good. I think it's irresponsible as a small craft brewery to try to build a business around shipping that, especially in Illinois, in Chicago, where all the malts is like just right around.
Yeah.
So to me, it's always looking local first. And if there's a reason, like absolutely, we're sprinkling some stuff in. And then there are all sorts of special projects where we'll bring in like European malts and use those. But for this, we're using domestic malt and all Pils malt.
Now, of course, those American maltsters are really excited when you say that.
Domestic, I actually don't know if it's grown here or Canada. So
but, North American.
Yeah,
North American.
I don't know where I don't have my full traceability on the barley.
Sure,
I know where the maltsters are. So we try to keep it local or at least close as much as we can. And that's easy for us, right? We're in the Midwest. So anytime we're doing a lager, as far as process, my biggest thing about lagers is people are prescriptive about, hey, you have to ferment at this temperature. You have to do it for this amount of time. And when you get that prescriptive, you stop seeing what the actual beer is going to be. You should be thinking about what's going to get you the best, cleanest fermentation and use that methodology, use that process and embrace that, because every brewery is going to be a little bit different. And I've seen it different in breweries that I've worked in where you see success on one and the exact opposite in another. And if you're just saying, hey, it has to be this way because someone told me that they did that 150 years ago, you might make a good beer. You might not. So our whole approach is about nurturing that yeast and getting the healthiest fermentation, because we want the most clean, neutral lager fermentation. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the coldest or the warmest. That means that we're following the knowledge that we've learned for what works here. So it obviously is going to be a low and slow fermentation. It sits in the tank for a long time.
Before you get there, is there specific Pils? I assume this is going to be a Pilsner malt in this one.
Yeah.
And is it like a low color, a lighter Pilsner, or is it a Pilsner where your goal is, a little more flavor to it?
This one, we actually have a little more flavor and color. And if you hold this beer, so we were enjoying it over at Parachute at this event last night. And like Chef Beverly was pouring the beers behind the bar. It's great to see her. She was running the decks because they do like a hi-fi sound listening bar. So they're spinning K-pop, like old K-pop, and pouring pocha or Korean beer, and it's distinct. You can see that there's beer in that glass. It's not super pale, right. So it's actually really enjoyable to my eye. I think part of it is that we needed to make sure that, hey, if we're gonna be making, we've got like 5 or 6 lager beers that we're always making. We do think about how do we differentiate these, because we don't want it to all just be the same expression. And there is going to be a narrower range in color, but within that, you do get a distinct kind of color range between all those beers. And this one tends to have a little bit more of that kind of gold hue to it. I find it really enjoyable, that color, and it reads to the eye like you're going to expect. It actually has a little bit of sweetness. You can taste that breadiness. So it's there. You're not going to miss it. We always mash in fairly cold. We go through a bunch of different steps, make sure that we're getting everything we need out of that malt, good extraction out of that malt, and then pretty standard in terms of just like how we boil. And then fermentation. It's primary, making sure that we have a healthy, clean, normal lager fermentation.
How much given this range of lager that you produce, maintaining multiple lager strains in order to get different kinds of expression, and then understanding how all of those work through fermentation. That's a lot to put into it. Do you use a common lager yeast strain through these?
Yeah, these days we really just use one strain that I really enjoy. It does a good job. Like most lager
Are you
strains.
team 3470 on this? Are you team Ondex?
It's nothing super secret here, but like I'm not going to just start naming names on
fine.
what we do, but in terms of like which yeast we're sourcing. But I'll say this: it's like most lager yeast, is stinky in fermentation, but it cleans up really nice. And it's consistent and it works well. You get that normal line of fermentation instead of like a curve, like, an ale fermentation where it goes quick and then stops. So you get the really regular drop in your gravity as it's going. And that's what you want to see. And then, beyond that, making sure we're clearing diacetyl and then a good long lager rest. And that means different things for different people. I know, I like when I was out in Czech Republic 2 years ago, I was hearing 90 days from the state brewery. That's amazing. That's cool. I don't have 90 days.
Sure.
But it's not going to be 3 days and move it, right? We need to get a good lager. So most of the lagers we're doing,
Well, and that 90 days, honestly is a result of the process that Czech brewers are using. Like if, they're using an older, more rustic kind of approach to lager brewing, and you have to condition it for all of that diacetyl to reuptake. Then, and if you don't, then you end up with beer with too much diacetyl in it,
and you'll notice it for sure. And and I don't know what's true where. Like you hear a lot of different things. I heard fermentation temperatures as low as 7 degrees, and that's chilly. That's going to be a low and slow fermentation for sure. And like, we've done that before. We've done warmer, we've done colder. And so, we find what works, right. And gives us a good, clean beer at the end. So there's really no way to cheat time. Like that's the biggest thing with the lagers. And I'm preaching to the choir here, right? Like there's, you can push it out faster, but you're going to notice it. It's going to have some edginess to it. It's going to have some, just parts that you think like, give it an extra week. That could have really helped round it out.
Sure. Right? And all of your conditioning happens in cylinder conicals then.
Yeah. We don't have horizontals. We don't have any of the other fun stuff, but there's no reason you can't make a great lager in a tall tank. And we don't actually have very tall ceilings here. So it's like almost a horizontal in some cases.
So then, with something like your Czech lager, or with these, where are some of those key differentiation points? What are some of the like major factors then that change for that? Is it the malt that you choose for those? What kind of levers in fermentation you pull? Obviously, noble hops and some of these classics, but then some of those noble hops are spanning some of these different lager styles as well.
Yeah, I think hops are a great differentiator in lager, right? So, in tank beer, our Czech style lager, and the gesture there is doing true like tank nova, like the beer out of the tank, right? The serving tank. That beer is meant to be enjoyed fresh. It's poured fast through a looker. It's all Satz hops. We've played around with some other Czech hops on kind of the bittering side. The Czechs are so funny about hops. They'll tell you Satz is the only hop that you should ever use. It's the most important hop that's ever been invented, but it's also a poor grower and it's got bad agronomics and it's hard. And so you should try these other great Czech hops that we grow. But for us, we really don't need to venture out, right? We don't need to kind of reinvent anything there. So it's
that same conversation with Zdeněk Rosa again from Bohemia Hops at CBC a couple of weeks ago, where and we acknowledge, Satz is a agronomically a horrible hop. And we should probably,
but it makes great beer. And so we're small enough where we can buy every bit that we need. It's not an issue. And if we become a gigantic brewery and have to source a bunch of Satz hops, maybe we explore that later. But no, I mean, realistically, Satz, it's one of my favorite hops. I'm really happy anytime we get to use it in that beer. But Pils, our lead Pilsner, it is a North German style. So Tettnang has always been a big part of that, as well as, your Hallertau, Mittelfrüh Hallertau, Herzbrucker, just beautiful, noble hops that all have, again, we're talking about a narrow kind of band of creativity. Like we're not talking about these like IPA flavors, but they are absolutely distinct and you will absolutely notice them if you run out, sub them, and try different things, and year to year variants too. So, It's really going to depend. The pour style is going to depend on the finished beer. So Pils is a fair amount more bitter. It's got a little bit more pointedness than our Czech tank beer. So Pils, we do, that 3-step pour where we dry it out. And we used to offer different options on our menu, but frankly, the 3-step pour, the longer pour, it's better. It tastes better. It smells better. It looks better. That's the only way we do it. We don't give it any options. Whereas tank beer, that lucre pour, that fast pour, is really the only way that it's like fully enjoyable. The other way is like you get a good beer, but they don't taste as good. They don't look as good. So we're just not going to do it. So we're lucky enough where we've got enough taps on front that we can choose and pick and choose and do the different service styles for exactly the beers that we want to do.
How does that impact, say, like, bitterness goals? Because obviously, with something like the Czech pour, you are intentionally pushing a lot of CO2 out of solution through that fast, pouring through that lucre faucet. And that's the goal. Pop it out of there, make great foam with it. And the beer itself then comes across, not quite with the same kind of, carbonation structure in the liquid itself versus something like that, North German style Pils. How does that impact, the way you think about the hop of bitterness?
Yeah, carbonation's a funny one. And we spun everything that we do here. So, capture as much natural carbonation as we can. And I really like the character that gives the beers. It's a great way to just kind of recapture what we're already making, and namely CO2. But in the finished beer, it expresses differently, right? So yes, absolutely. You get more carbonation, kind of more pointed bitterness. We've got a bunch of people here that I think are aligned in loving carbonation. I am included in that camp, but getting a lucre pour where you knock a lot of that out just reinvents the beer altogether. So there is always going to be some amount of compromise, right? Like most places that we sell that keg of beer, they're not pouring it on a lucre. So they're going to get a little bit different experience. We're not at a point where we're brewing different batches to try to match that. And then knowing that we're selling 16-ounce cans as like our primary packaged beer, I'm sure some of that, most of that's getting drank out of the can, right? I love pouring beer into a glass. I love you can try to do any sort of pour out of a can, get as creative as you want, but most people are just going to enjoy it out of the can. So I can't control every experience, but we can at least try to tailor it to what we think is the best approach. And that's what we offer at Hopewell at our bar.
Sure. In addition to these lagers that we've talked about, are there any other kinds of approaches to lager or Pils that you've had a really fun time wrapping your head around and exploring?
Oh, man, we've done a bunch. Going through COVID, we were doing one every month, like a new Pils. We just created basically a series and just new Pils all the time. We've taken a break from Italian Pils. It's such a fun style, super hoppy and expressive. But we can only do so much. So we've taken a break. The last couple of years, we were doing Japanese style. Sharp was the name of it, and we were using a sharp pour, which is just really great for Instagram, great for the gram and the reels, where you basically pour super gentle and try to create no foam, and then you create all the foam at the very end and just cap it in and trap in all of the CO2. So the exact opposite of what we were just talking about. Right. So it's super carbonated and you still get this moussey foam on top. There's some waste because you kind of have to scrape off the kind of chaotic foam before you get that dense stuff that caps on top. But it's flashy and it's a little bit of beer to waste to get the perfect pour out of it. And in that style, and that's super dry, super light and effervescent, it's really enjoyable to just get that maximum carbonation. So again, kind of designing the whole beer around, all right, what is that experience? Are we going for the sharp pour? All right, let's start at the beginning. What do we want out of this? Because that's going to come from...
You dial IBUs down a little bit when you know that it's going to come across that prickly.
Oh yeah, and it's lean, right? The bitterness is there. You don't need a lot of it.
Yeah, it's true, because that's also a very dry beer, and so it's all up front and center.
Right, but I think that bitterness feels different. You perceive it different when you're getting that carbonation bump, that carbonic acid popping on your tongue, as well as that bitterness. So it's all in conjunction. I think we look at these numbers like as I'm not a scientist, but I studied fermentation, and we love the metrics, the international bitterness. What a great measurement, but it really is reductive. It's not giving you the full picture of what you're actually tasting and experiencing. So we try to understand the context of the full beverage, and sometimes that means that you're going to learn something. And you're like, all right, we need way more IBUs than I would have ever guessed, because it's interacting in the beer differently than we had planned. So those moments for me are like what keep me coming back and keep this whole thing enjoyable, where you keep learning.
Sure. No, always a new challenge. Well, let's talk a little bit about Choom. Now, this is a new project, as some of the Farm Bill made these hemp-derived THC beverages possible. There's a fair number of breweries in the country that jumped on this train. There's certainly a whole bunch that were like, hell no. And, opinions have been split on THC beverages. Obviously, we fall in the camp of whatever's good for craft brewers, we are on board with, as long as craft brewers can make interesting, creative, technically sound, and compelling beverages that engage with their consumers and do so in a creative and artisanal way. Then, let's go for it. So that's always been our approach. I'm not going to reject the entire category just because it uses THC instead of ethanol as a mood adjuster of sorts. But you guys got into it, and it was pretty impactful for the brewery as a whole. And it's been a giant growth thing. How did you start approaching that category? And again, thinking about it in a way that made sense for the kind of consumer that Hopewell was hoping to find in that kind of THC beverage market.
Yeah, so I love the category. It's so fun. So our brand Choom is in the little 8-ounce stubby cans, and we've got a handful of flavors, and they're all like you're describing. They're considered. Like, we weren't just going to make some spazzy stuff and just hope that it sells. It's like, all right, we're a craft brewery. Let's make something that we want to enjoy, that we think our customers will enjoy, and it's a totally different experience. It can meet someone that's not drinking alcohol that night, or not drinking alcohol ever, or just wants to switch it up a little bit. So we absolutely had to get into the space. We were looking at it back a couple of years ago. It was like mostly our friends in Minnesota kind of leading the way back then. And I'll be honest, I was the kind of reticent one on our team. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like, I don't know where this is going. But as a team, we kind of came together, and it's all right, let's do this. And to your question, it's not the same brand. It's not the same gesture. It's not the same customer as Hopewell. So that was kind of intentional from the start. I mean, they're tied together. The Hopewell's name is on there, but the Choom brand, we think, speaks to a different person. Hopefully there's a lot of crossover, but we weren't just setting out to say, hey, current Hopewell drinker, you're going to like this too. We were thinking, hey, there's a lot of people who don't drink Hopewell that might want to drink this too. So we wanted to think broad and not limit ourselves from the start. So that was the first big challenge, is what is this? We're inventing a new brand when we're like 8 years old.
There's also some benefit of keeping a bit of that brand connected, but it's still at arm's length, that with some legal futures of this, even now, like deeply in question.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to have something that can live on its own. Maybe, if it becomes so successful and needs to scale like climbing kites, then you bring in other partners and things grow and grow and grow. If it's something where it needs to then go off and either do its own thing and be separate for legal reasons or whatever, that can happen too.
We absolutely invited more risk to the company. We invited more insurance, and, we had to get separate insurance, all, the whole thing, everything you'd expect about bringing in hemp THC to your brewing business. That said, we were by no means the first people to be pushing THC beverage in Chicago, but I think we were early, and we were successful in getting the word out and getting Choom to market, and just kind of opening people's eyes. Hey, wait a second, I could buy this? I didn't know I could buy this.
Right.
We're a legal dispensary state, so there's recreational weed. You can buy it at a dispensary. Dispensary owners can own 10 dispensaries, so there's chains of dispensaries in this state. It's been broadly successful. There's a lot of critique. There's a lot of good reason for those critiques. There's a lot of problems with the system. Hemp came on the scene and started selling everything everywhere. And that has been, I will say, a problem. We always set out to make adult use beverage, right? Regulated beverage is what we do. This is what I know. I studied fermentation. I live fermentation. So this is a separate space, but we wanted to truly follow and not deviate. Like if we are very familiar making regulated beer, like one of the more regulated products in the world. So we fully believe starting this that, hey, we are going to do the best we can to self-regulate, to do all the right choices, to put, there's no federal warning on this, right? Because the FDA hasn't approved this. This is all, same question about a ban coming up. So we're putting the most sensible warning we can on these things. We're putting 21 plus. We're not selling 10 milligram beverages to bars because we think that's too much. We think that's a enjoyable amount, but not at an on-premise setting. So, we're setting kind of rules of the road that we think are reasonable, that we think are models for, and other states have followed. Our state has yet to really put any regulatory framework forward. So you asked about the beverage. I'm going straight into kind of the background.
That's okay.
But there's a lot of what we had to do to get it off the ground.
Right.
So Choom, we set out to make enjoyable beverages, but we were not chasing a singular flavor. So like our main Choom original is lemon lime, real fruit juice, touch of sweetness, zippy, super carbonated. We have solar Choom, which is more tropical, like pineapple, tangerine. We have a cherry lime. We've done a couple that are more like cocktail adjacent. So Prima and Dopo, which are fairly bitter, and get into that kind of world, which are super fun to make. Definitely like less of a like everyday drink and more kind of specialty. You might enjoy it after dinner, like that kind of experience. Easy tea. So we've done a lemon tea. We have tons of ideas that we want to get out. And it's really just kind of a constraint of like how many new ideas can we do? And how many new ideas can we do until November, when at the federal level, this is all going to be fully banned and like we're out of the game, right?
All going to be fully banned, Steven. That is not the team spirit for a producer. You're not supposed to be throwing in the towel right now.
I'm not. I'm a realist, and that's the state of play right now. There is a lot of good people doing really good work on the ground to change the legislation. I think there are real structural challenges to that. And number one, I think that hemp as a category, and I know there are a lot of opinions on this, so I'm just speaking for beverage. This is what we make. I think hemp beverage needs to get serious about, hey, do we want to be selling hemp beverages, or are we talking about selling hemp whatever? Because I think that's so cool that there are gummies, all these other products. I don't know anything about them. I don't make them. I'm not fully convinced that those should be allowed in every state if there's already a regulatory framework. I understand the complexity there, right? And I understand the reasons for and against. I don't want to enter that fray. I want to make beverages. I want to serve them at liquor license holders. I want to sell them through a 3-tier system. There's obviously a lot of nuance in that. Craft beer has already, worked through 3-tier, worked against 3-tier, kind of separate, small, whatever. But by and large, that's a system, a regulatory framework that we know works, and that we know we don't need to invent before November. And we know that we can reasonably get adult beverages out to market in a controlled way, collect taxes on it, and get it safely to the right people and out of the hands of the wrong people. So, namely,
existing
kids.
regulatory structure, existing mechanisms for enforcement of those regulations. It seems like we've already got this system. Why do we need to reinvent another system on top of that?
That's where we're at. I mean, it's a long proven system. We all know the problems with 3-tier in America, but it is by and large been a very successful system of regulating alcohol and keeping it out of the hands of children and keeping it in responsible actors and collecting taxes on it. So helping states. We're in Chicago.
Let's just say 3-tier system with carve-outs for direct from producers a la wine, which I think is the nicer of the 3-tier systems compared to some of the beer issues that exist.
I'll let everyone doing the real work at the federal level fight those fights. And and I agree. I have no issues with any of that. But the idea that right now everything is allowed under the sun, I think is a fantasy land that we are not going to, it's just not going to be, right? So we need to wake up and decide, hey, what are we fighting for? Are we talking about beverages? What are we talking about? Low dose beverages. What does that mean? We've never defined it. And low dose means a lot of different things to a lot of people. I have no judgment. I do not care if 10 milligrams, 50 milligrams, 5 milligrams. I don't really care, but we got to decide what this is so that we can actually align and start talking about it. Because otherwise everyone is confused. Like everyone, people in the space are confused. So you can imagine that like the broader public is confused about this. Most people don't know this is going away. Most people at the Dill Pickle Co-op right next door, we sell a ton of Choom. They're great partners. I love the Dill Pickle. I'm going over there later. I'm sure most people shopping Choom over there are not aware that this is all about to go away in November unless something happens at the federal level. Last thing I'll say on that is
you got to get the marketing materials out there. This is going to go away in November unless you contact your representative.
We really should. We've done some of that, but that's actually a great idea. Like just some physical mailers, like get the word out. Because there's a lot of reps that understand the small business impact, and there's reps at the city level. We've worked with the city in Chicago. We get a great regulatory package to actually finally regulate these beverages. And it ended up, at the final step, kind of falling apart for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I was pretty bummed about. But there are a lot of people in local government that understand the impact of small business, understand the impact of a business like Hopewell. That's true at the state level. When we talk to state regulators, they want to get this done. Like they want to see this regulated. At the federal level, I think part of the issue is that the question has become, I think it's simple, but it's just become a public safety versus small business. And what won out last November was public safety, and that got signed through. I have no impact on like our federal government. We're still half closed, right? Like I don't know. And there's real issues that we got to address, right? Like there's, we're in a dumb war that like we shouldn't be in, that's causing real human strife. Like those are real issues, right? Not hemp, but
and some mixed messages from this administration too, where they've made these motions to reschedule marijuana as Schedule 3 as long as it's medical. I'm not sure why. In one medical context, it could be Schedule 3, but still Schedule 1 in a recreational. But, hey, that's, I think there's some issues there. There is some interesting kind of mixed signals around that, while they also have said they want to, crack down on some of these derivative hemp things.
Mixed signals is exactly right. So there's just no clarity. And again, I love the category. I want it to survive. I'm laying out the reasons why I'm not feeling particularly optimistic in this moment, because I think it's hard to get a group of federal regulators together to actually agree on what we're talking about. Whether it's kicking it down the road, I don't know why they would. They already voted to keep it, to ban it, to actually choose to regulate it. They got to actually get together and do the work. The work is happening. I know it's happening. I know the trade groups that are getting together to do it. I'm hopeful, but yeah,
what would it mean for you as a small business if that does become illegal in November 12th?
It'll be bad. It'll be layoffs. It'll be immediate layoffs here. We've been open with our team. I don't want to be trite about that, but sure. I want to be open. This is like part of our responsibility as a small employer to be transparent where we can. We have grown the team. We are growing beer. I'll say this is we are a beer brewing business. That is what we do. That's our core. That's what we're growing. We're growing at a great pace this year. I'm like super happy about that in a time that's really challenging for alcohol at large. But alongside that, we're growing our own brand of THC, and we're growing a co-manufacturing business that we started, where we're co-manufacturing other THC beverages that we're not related to. We just have relationships where we make it for them to their spec, and then they go sell it. That's been a blast. We're meeting new people. It's a totally different space. It's a different business. It's exciting. That's all at risk, right? That's all going to be going away. So that means that the team that we've hired up, that we've trained up, that they're going to have to go away, and that's not the path that we want to be on. So it is a very real impact. It's not a theoretical one for us.
Sure, and and felt that much more fully at a business this scale, where it's a very small team to start with, and the prospect of that having to be pulled apart because you lose double-digit percentage of your yearly revenue just overnight. It's just a massive thing.
Yeah, it's meaningful, and again, I'm not trying to be trite like layoffs. I'm not excited about it, but we are trying to be open and real about what's coming our way. Beer is by far the bulk of what we do, the bulk of our revenue. But if we're going to lose two big categories, our own brand of THC and then our co-manufacturing business, the business is going to suffer, and it's going to be very tough. The team, we've got a great team here. I'm really proud of the things that we do. This kind of horizon, it frays on us, right? It's hard. It's not fun just kind of looking at a cliff coming up, looking at all the news about how beer is dead, and it's like, well, we're growing beer. Someone's buying Hopewell, but it doesn't mean that everything's easy, right? These are challenging times, and most of our business we sell to restaurants and bars all around Chicago and in the states that we sell. The restaurant business, that's a tough one right now, and that's nothing reset after COVID. COVID changed everything, and now everyone's trying to find the new pattern, and like everyone is struggling. So we're not alone in this. We're hospitality adjacent, but I mean, we're in it. We're seeing the same thing in all our neighboring small businesses.
Well, I don't want to end on a negative note like that. So, but you do mention that beer is growing for you. And this is an interesting one, especially coming out of CBC last month, where we saw that 60% of breweries have reported declines, but 40% have reported increases in growth, and which suggests that it's again a challenging and mixed market. It's not a single story out there. It's certainly not a death of beer. What do you think is driving growth for you, and where do you find like in this market where it feels like either it's not that fewer people are drinking, but a lot of people are drinking less often, and which means you need to find more people to kind of slot in there, or find reasons and occasions to create and help people connect with more occasions where they can be social. I think more people need to be social in general. I think most of us feel that in our lives, that we would like to have more of those opportunities to sit down and have drinks with friends, have beers with friends. But where's that upside for you? What keeps driving you all, and what is that positivity? Obviously there's some light at the end of the tunnel, or else you just pack it in now.
Yeah, you're hitting that. This is like all the work we do, right? Why are we doing this? Who are we connecting with? I think to your point, everyone's talking about Gen Z, the Zoomers. Why aren't they drinking? They're not drinking. So, well, if you actually look at the more recent data sets, is they don't have money, right? They don't have money to spend on expensive craft beer or alcohol at large. And then the question of
my 17-year-old just had to spend $70 filling his gas tank.
Right. So then what do you want him to do after that?
He doesn't have any discretionary funds right now.
Right. So, and then the question of socializing, how are people getting together? Is, when you go to a restaurant, are you just picking up? That's, 30, 40, 50% of restaurant revenue now. And so is alcohol part of that? Is beer part of that? Is getting together over a beer part of that? So that, the habits have changed. So those are bigger questions. I think to the question of what's working for us, for Hopewell, we are finding success when we are connecting our beer to an occasion, to a time, to a shared experience. So something like Pocha, our Korean lager, that's working because people want to enjoy it with food. They want to try new beers that maybe they've never had a Korean lager, maybe they've never had Korean food. Maybe they're going to see it for the first time at a Korean restaurant, or they'll see it on the shelf and say, hey, what's this? I want to try it. So being specific about what we're doing. Our lead IPA going places is, we call it a bright IPA, because we're not on the West Coast, we're not on the East Coast, we're in Chicago, and we have a hazy IPA, but bright IPA, we think it means what it is. It's bright, it's clean, it's modern, it's enjoyable. So we're trying to communicate. Is
that inspired by the New Zealand bright IPA at all? Because they actually do use that nomenclature, bright IPA.
No, that's great though. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we invented anything from scratch, but we're just trying to communicate what we're actually, so check tank beer. We're trying to, give the gesture of, drinking fresh beer from the brewery. And so that's what we do at our bar, right? So we're finding success doing less of all of the riffraff. And like, I love making all the IPAs, new IPA every single week. Like, we went through a year where we did that. Just, I think 25 new IPAs. So every other week we were coming up with an IPA. That was a fun year. I was exhausted.
Sure.
We are doing much less these days and focusing in on our core beers and perfecting those and finding that creative impulse of doing better at what we're already doing and connecting that to the actual drinker. So I don't have a formula for exactly how to do that. But that is what's working for us. And that those are the brands that we're making that are succeeding, and the ones that are less clear about what they actually stand for, what they taste like, even if it's a great beer, we're just not going to see it grow in the same way.
In some ways, you're back to where you were at the early days of your career, getting deeply focused and iterative and small and just making it better and better all the time.
Totally. And we're running out of space here. So then the next question is, we can keep growing, but how are we going to do that? And so that's the big puzzle we're going to keep trying to solve. We're not growing for growth's sake, but as we're growing now, we see this company as more stable, and we want to keep on that path. I don't know when we pull into the station and we say that's enough, but at least this year we're really happy to be growing, and we know that we keep doing it next year. We're going to keep chasing it.
Sure, for sure. Well, that's a great place to bring it to a close. G&D's Elite 290 Micro Series is built for brewers who care about sustainability and performance. Berkeley Yeast's Dry Tropics London offers their best-selling liquid yeast strain with the ease of use of dry yeast. PacTex handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable. Indie Hop's Lorien has found its way into the hearts of lager lovers across the country. The Midea 50/50 Flex can convert to all fridge, all freezer, or half and half with just the touch of a button. Old Orchard is your one-stop shop for fruit juice concentrates, purees, and blends. Orbit Data from Encompass provides real-time visibility into retailer data, sales, and inventory. Arrived brings together all the tools you need in one complete platform. And the SS Brew Pump from SS Brewtech is engineered to tackle even the messiest brew days. If you've enjoyed this episode, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on the subscribe button, become a subscriber to Craft Beer and Brewing. Because if you think it's hard out there in the beer business, you should try the media business. No, I'm kidding. Thank you all for supporting this. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to all of our sponsors, who also make it possible to bring this to you. Stephen, people want to learn more about Hopewell, these beers you make, the Choom brand of THC beverages that you also make, whether in real life or out there in the digital space. Where can they find you?
Well, obviously our website, hopewellbrewing.com, but the best way to find out is come to our tap room, 2760 North Milwaukee Avenue in Chicago. It's in Logan Square, off the Logan Square Blue Line. We're steps away. We even have a t-shirt that'll show you the way to get from the Blue Line to our tap room.
I took the Blue Line from the airport, 30 minutes, no traffic, obviously just nice, clean train, great experience. I lived in New York City for 10 years, so I love public transportation. Yeah. And I looked at it as like, I could take a car, but the car's going to take me 40-something minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually faster on the train to take the train and walk because it's a city and that's the way things are.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. That's why we're brewing the hard way.
Well, heck yeah. Come drink it here. Enjoy a Czech lager poured tank style. Enjoy a drier foam German style pour, North German style pour. Come grab a can of Little Buddy if you want an 8-ouncer, or try some Korean lager while you're here. It's great talking to you about brewing. Cheers.
Really appreciate it.
This podcast has been brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those who love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.